So anyone watching the sports news today? Some of you say no, but I'm going to go to the idea of Tom Brady. Let's just think about who is this individual. This is a man about 6'4", 6'5". This is a man in peak physical condition. I mean, he's got a body that when you look at an athletic body, that's the body you want. He is married to one of the top supermodels in the world. He has beautiful children. They have created beautiful children together. Together, they're worth probably $500 million. And you look at them and you say, my God, that's the life that I want. And you see it's from one perspective only. Here's the man with 4 Super Bowl rings, and he just went through this whole thing called Inflategate, of all things. Isn't that sort of something? It's like, well, is your ego so high that it has to be deflated? So are you seeing how in life, this is what I want to make sure you understand, is that while you can look at this life from the outside, you can look at what the tabloids are saying, you can look at what the news media is saying, but one of the things we've got to remember is our lives are always in balance. No matter who you're looking at, the life is in balance. Someone was talking to me, Mary was talking to me the other day. She asked me up, called me up and said, let's have lunch. So we're having lunch. And she says, you got to let the community know that everyone looks at you and Gene and you've got this phenomenal marriage. And they think, how am I going to have a marriage like that? And I said, well, it's real simple. They can all marry me. But in reality, the thing that all people ever see is the outward expression. They never see what's going on behind the signs. And that's really something that's really critical, because when we look at life, there's an infinite power and presence that we call God. If it's infinite, that means everything exists as it, through it, of it, because it has taken itself as the infinite and from it created all things out of itself. So if all things are created out of this infinite divine presence that we call God, then everything is a perfect balance, because God must be a perfect balance. You see, nothing can exist outside of God, because to say something exists outside of God, God could not be the 3 omnis. Omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. Omnipotent, okay? That's a mouthful for me. But anyway, so when you think about that, if you look at a molecule, it's balanced. You look at a cell, it's balanced. You look at an atom, it's balanced. You look at a photon, it's balanced. You look at a plank, it's balanced. You start coming up to an organ. When an organ's in balance, it's what? In perfect homeostasis, meaning there's no disease. Disease means an out of balance. So we can take it to the body. The body's either in balance or it's out of balance. We can take it to this community. Is it in balance or is it out of balance? And there's always a positive and there's always a negative, and they got to be balanced. The only time there's not a positive and a negative is when we, through our limited perspective, don't want to look at the other side. We forget that there's a whole other side of life. So I just finished watching a 6-hour documentary. Maybe longer than that. Maybe it's a 7-hour documentary. And I was asked to watch it by John DeMartini, and it's called The Other Side of Life. No, it's not. I'm sorry, that's wrong. The Greatest Story Never Told. And it's a documentary on a different aspect on the life of Adolf Hitler. And I want to share with you, I don't know what's true anymore. All I know is what I've watched. But I see both sides. And so I'm going to give a perspective, because I'm going to use an ethnic perspective, because it's a perspective I can relate to. Half of my nationality is Polish. My grandparents came from Poland. Okay, so I have an ethnicity there. So all I remember being taught in school was that this harmless Polish nation was invaded by Germany and taken over in like 3 days. And what a cruel and horrific act it was upon the Polish people. What I didn't know, and I found out, and I looked it up in history to find out if it was true, was the reason Poland was invaded because at the peace treaty of Versailles, Germany was divided up, and the eastern part of Germany was given to Poland. So there were over 2 million Germans in Polish territory. Well, those Germans, what happened was the Polish people were starting to do mass genocide on the Polish people. And Hitler invaded invaded Poland to save those Germans. Had you been taught that in school? Did you have any idea of that in school? I didn't. I had to look at my own people and say, what were you like? And then what I saw in this documentary was I got to see that from both sides, the atrocities, the horrific atrocities of war were not just done by the Nazis or the Axis powers, they were done by the Allied powers just as well. More people were killed by Stalin than any other thing combined, over 40 million people killed. So I'm using that horrific example to open you up and say, what are you listening to? Are you listening to something within you that's calling to say, is there more? Because when you're listening to find something more, you will find that when you know a truth, you will feel a sense of balance. So let me take you to another thing. In relationships, we've been brought up with this idea that we're going to go out and we're going to meet that soulmate. And when we meet that soulmate, we're going to be as happy as we can be. I just knew that this woman I would meet would cook for me. She would clean for me. She would be socially there to present great dinners for others. She would be physically attracted to me. She would beckon to my every whim call. I mean, this woman was so perfect. And I got married. And then as I got married, you know, when you first get married, there's this whole infatuation thing. You ever been in the infatuation stage? Where, oh my God, I worship you. I'm not worthy. You ever see that? And you put this person on a pedestal, don't you? The pedestal is so high. Are we out of balance right there? And then we sort of settle down, we come to an indifferent level where, you know, it's just, we're just sort of going to groove along, it's just indifferent. And then we start to see she's got other qualities. She wears really weird shoes. She doesn't do things the way I would expect her to. And then what do we go to? We see the dark side. And that's where a lot of relationships end. The key thing is, bring it back up. Come back into a state of homeostasis. Come back into a state of balance. And understand that balance is, when seeing someone in balance, that's the state of unconditional love. Did you hear that? Because that's a real important thing, because this idea of love that we've been given, that it's one-sided. When you're good, I love you. When you're bad, you're damned. That is not the truth. An infinite love would never damn itself. It's impossible. I'm taking you to the standpoint of looking at this infinite power and presence that we call God and not to anthropomorphize it. Anthropomorphize means to give God human qualities. It's not that way. We don't give God its qualities. God gives us its qualities. And God giving us its qualities gives us the capacity to see the infinite, to know the infinite, to feel the infinite, to know the balance, and know that our role in this world is to strive to live from that balance so that we can be unconditionally loving in the world. And where does that love have to start? With ourselves. There is no love in the world until you can love yourself. To love yourself, you must see God as you. And you must be able to see the balance that you are. You must be able to say, it's not when I become this that I can have that, but I'm already perfect right now. Everything about me is perfect, but how am I looking at myself? How am I judging myself? Through the one-sided view. And I want you to be aware that everything out there in the universe right now is presenting you with a one-sided view. All 6 of the major news medias or all the news medias that are out there, whether it's sports or whatever it is, are controlled by 6 companies. Those 6 companies have common boards of directors. So you're hearing something from a slant. The question is, what does your infinite intelligence say? Are you thinking for yourself? Are you saying, do I have all the information? Do I have everything to make an opinion so that I can go forth and be the light in the world? See, that's what Jesus meant when he said, not only love God above all else, but love thy neighbor as thyself. So love thy neighbor as thyself. So if I love God above all else, and I'm that expression of God, that child of God, then as much as I love God, I must love the God that I am individualized as. And when I love the God as I'm individualized as, then I must take that love that I have for myself and God, and I must love my neighbor or everyone else, everything else, because it's God in expression. We also have a false idea that we can have peace on earth. I don't think it's possible. Because if you think about this, if God is always expressing itself infinitely, that means that there's infinite states of consciousness. Would you not agree? That in order for the infinite to be infinite, it must be infinite, right? So if there's infinite states of consciousness at any time, there's going to be those that see the divine, there are going to be those that don't see the divine. There's going to be those that see peace, there's going to be those that see war. And what happens is, this is like, earth is like it's like a training ground to unfold and become aware of the divine that's in you. And as that experiment, as that training ground, there's going to be contrast. There has to be contrast. Because without contrast, there's no motivation to become anything. Contrast is that which seeks us to love at a higher level. And see, this is what I'm getting more and more. I just get comfortable at this level where I'm loving everything, and what happens? Greater contrast. And so everything that I mastered at this point of consciousness, I now have to remaster at this point of consciousness, and yet it's the same thing, but because it's a step up, it's unknown, isn't it? And when we go to the unknown, that's where we fear. Where is fear? For me, it's in the middle of the night. I don't know where that consciousness came from. I don't know if it was I was afraid of the boogeyman, but I will have my greatest fear when I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm considering the unknown that I'm about to deal with. And when I go there, I have to go back and I have to remind myself that there's nothing to fear. That infinite intelligence is flowing through me at all times, and when I listen and I respond from that state of love, from that intelligence, I will be guided and directed by a wisdom within me that will lead me step by step. I don't have to worry about having every step outlined. All I have to do is move in the direction. The key thing I want to say to you, and I said this the other day at the Chamber of Commerce, and I got quite a bit of feedback on it. I said, there's no divine plan for you, other than the divine plan you've chosen to express for yourself. Each one of you, do you know everyone has a fingerprint, right? There's 7.5 billion people in the world, and they have different fingerprints. No 2 fingerprints are alike. No 2 snowflakes are alike. No 2 leaves are exactly alike. No 2 cells are exactly alike. Everything is unique. So you have values. This is what makes you unique. You have values. Most of them are unconscious because most people haven't taken the time to figure out what their conscious values are. When you know those values, you live from them. When you understand your 5 top values in your life, you will do everything in your day based on those values. So when something comes to you, let me create an example for you. I love this example. What are the 3 things that most ministers fall on? Sex, money, and lack of integrity. Those are the 3 things that cause most ministries to fall. So I'm going to pick my favorite, sex. If you are clear in your top values, my first number 1 value is self-actualization and spiritual awareness. My second value is teaching and speaking about this magnificent teaching that we have here at Agape. My third is learning more and more and more about it. My fourth is building community. And my fifth is health and wellness. And I picked health and wellness as my fifth because without health and wellness, I can't do the top four. Okay, so those are my values. So let's pretend I'm out of town. And I'm there. And the most beautiful woman in the world comes walking up. And she says, I like you. I say, thank you. And the conversation goes on. And all of a sudden, she makes an offer. It can be subtle, it could be direct, it could be anything. That's where the decision point is. And what I tell you is that when you know your values, the decision's easy because you ask this question, does it serve my highest values? And so the answer pops up, no. Every time it's going to be no. Because you're clear on what your divine purpose and mission is. You see, I don't know what your mission and purpose is, but I'm going to tell you, we're going to bring people into Agape, provide some workshops that allow you to uncover that. We are really going to be starting to do some new things. I think it's either the end of September or the beginning of October. We're going to offer a values workshop with some trained facilitators in that so that you can come from like 1 to 3 o'clock on a Sunday and you can get your values down. Because until you know your values, you're blindly float. You're like a sailboat on the water that does not have a rudder. And so wherever the wind is blowing, you're moving along. Once you know your values, you've got your rudder in. And when you've got your rudder in, then you can take hold of it and you can steer toward what you want. Here's the key thing. Anyone been sailing before? If you know that if I want to go from here to there, it's not a straight line because of the wind. You're tacking. You're going back and forth. You're constantly doing a course correction, an adjustment. That's the same thing with our values. As we're going forward and we're moving toward it, we're going to be driven off course. And then we know our value brings it right back. And you see, we don't have to judge ourselves when we go off course. We just have to say, I'm off course correction. See how easy that is? No beating up, no nothing. It's a course correction. That's perfect. So we don't have to judge ourselves. We just simply have to know ourselves and become aware of the power within us. This balance is true in our finances. How many people here love to spend money? The question I ask is, are you spending and saving? Do you have balance? We've been brought up in a society that says have all this stuff, have credit cards, and build debt. When you're building debt up, what are you building? You're building up a life that's based on a lie. It's not based on a foundation. So the idea is the quicker way, all the great spiritual teachers, all the great financial people tell you, the quickest way to get abundant is to get out of debt. Debt does not serve. There comes a time when maybe you're getting a mortgage or something like that, but it doesn't serve. Because if you go into Plano or Frisco and you look at all these magnificent homes with the BMWs, with the Mercedes, with the Lexus in there, and you say, my God, I want their life, I don't know if you want their debt. Because see, don't be looking on the outside to say, what do people got? You don't know what they got. The humble person over here might be the one that fools you. That says, I have no debt. I have all this safety. I am financially independent. I can rely on myself and my God-given purpose to bring my life. I don't need to borrow. See, I'm not saying borrowing's bad. I'm asking you to take a look at it. We are programmed to borrow. Do you get credit card offers in the mail? Like 85 of them a week? What do you see on if you're watching television? Credit card commercials? Wanting you to buy more. Oh, we're going to give you 100,000 points. But you buy and we'll charge you 19% interest. That'll keep you locked into debt for a long time. Again, what I'm trying to say today is there's always another side. See, when people come to me and they're dating, I will say to them, how long has it been? A month or two. No, it's not long enough. Because we hold up this false image, and it's not a false image. We hold up our better self for a period of time. And then after a period of time, I'll just get a little slack. I'll get a little slack. And you realize that your partner has as much gas as you do. I've looked at the research. And the research studies have shown that women emit as much gas as men emit on a daily basis. Men are just very proud of their emissions. Women remain in the closet. The first time my wife came out of the closet, it scared the hell out of me. So the ladies over here are looking, oh, that's his wife over there, and he's talking about her. Of course I am. See, there are times when I praise my wife, and there are times when I humiliate my wife. You just got to pick the right things to humiliate her on. And really, it's not a matter of humiliating her. I'm not trying to do that. I'm actually, we have an open relationship about these things. We're not shy about expressing ourselves. Because we realize that after 42 and a half years, it's not about the surface. It's what's meant when you say something. You see, so many times we say what is said, and remember, if you have a different value than someone else, and you say it, you're going to say it in a different way that someone with different values are going to say it. And what they may be saying based on their values may be the same thing, but you're not hearing it the same way. Does that make sense? So I can have a term of endearment for my wife that you may find offensive. But that's your perspective. And I don't care about your perspective. See, I want you to develop an I don't care attitude about other people's opinions. I want you to develop an attitude that you consider, am I being my highest self? Is my intention honorable? Am I looking at that person and seeing their allness? And how am I responding based authentically? You see, when we subordinate ourselves to others' values, we're not loving. We're not even feeling we're worthy. I'm hitting you with a lot of things that you've probably not pondered before. So I'm knowing that when you leave here, there'll be a little bit of angst in you. I may have pressed some buttons, and that's my intention. You see, coming to Agape, I'm here to get you to question everything. Because what I know in you is a divine wisdom that when you question and you ask, that divine wisdom in you will guide you to your answer. And that's all you're seeking is your answer. And here's the thing I want to say. Your answer will determine how you live as love in the world today, now. And when you are that authentic person, you are the perfect emanation of the Most High. You are unique, you are whole, you are perfect, you are the one individualized as the many. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.